In the seventh year of their marriage, Liam and Chloe's relationship reached a crisis point. This crisis wasn't caused by infidelity or irreconcilable differences, but by something far more mundane and terrifying. Their marriage license was about to expire. That's right. In the world they inhabited, marriage was not a lifelong promise, but a contract with a fixed term. Every year, the Marriage Management Bureau conducted a routine inspection, asking a simple question: would they be renewing? Though they had been childless throughout their marriage, they had always managed to pass the annual review. Until this year. This year, their marriage had become a quagmire of resentment and silence. In a desperate attempt to save what they had, after weighing every option, they agreed to undergo a memory extraction procedure, a radical surgery designed to erase the painful years and return them to the sweet, uncomplicated beginning of their life together. But no one could have predicted that this attempt to rewrite their past would inadvertently uncover a devastating secret hidden within their marriage, a truth more painful than any they had sought to forget. The day the marriage reviewer arrived, Liam and Chloe had been locked in a Cold War for 3 full days. They were both stubborn, each refusing to be the one to surrender first. The silence in their apartment was a tangible thing, thick and suffocating. It wasn't until the reviewer coolly asked about the renewal that Liam's internal defenses finally crumbled. He couldn't bear the thought of losing her, of failing so completely. Getting a marriage license is so difficult these days, he began, his voice strained as he tried to sound casual. I don't want to give up halfway. We'll renew. We're definitely renewing. He looked up at Chloe, who was sitting ramrod straight on the sofa, her face an unreadable mask. He prayed she would echo his sentiment. I don't want to renew, she said, her voice quiet but firm. This marriage, as it is now, is nothing but agony for me. Liam's heart stuttered. The word agony struck him like a physical blow. Chloe, what are you saying? We've had a few small arguments. There's no need to blow it up into something this final. She let out a soft, weary sigh and shook her head. 5 years ago, you started that business with your friends. You started coming home late, then not at all. Do you have any idea how many nights I spent in this house alone? I told you, again and again, that I needed you here. You always said you were busy with work. I believed you at first, but you just kept letting me down. A buzzing started in Liam's head. It was true. He hadn't been able to balance his work and his home life. He had failed his wife. I was doing it for us, for our family, he retorted, his defensiveness rising. Without me working myself to the bone, how could you live this life, with no worries about money? The mention of money made Chloe's eyes flash with anger. Money, money, that's all you ever think about, she shot back. What good is all the money in the world when our home is this cold and empty? Liam was stunned. He couldn't believe all his hard work meant so little to her. Would you rather go back to living in that damp, moldy basement apartment? He demanded. I'm a man. It's my job to provide a better life for my wife. The image of their tiny basement apartment from their early days in the city flooded Chloe's mind. Life had been a struggle back then, but they had been happy. They had been close. Now, their beautiful home felt more like a prison, and the distance between their hearts had grown immeasurable. The reviewer, who had been observing them with detached professionalism, cleared his throat, shattering Chloe's reverie. According to the regulations of the Marriage Management Bureau, if one party wishes to renew and the other does not, a preliminary assessment is required to determine if a renewal is justifiable. Chloe nodded numbly. Liam, after a moment's hesitation, reluctantly agreed. He remembered the grueling process of earning their marriage license in the first place. It had been an ordeal he had no desire to repeat. They had started preparing 6 months in advance, attending marriage training classes, studying marital laws and regulations like they were preparing for the bar exam. Once they were accepted into the Bureau's program, they had to pass courses in conflict resolution, communication, emotional management, and even household chore collaboration. There were over 100 modules, each one demanding an exhaustive amount of energy and emotional investment. They had stumbled and fought their way through it, but they had passed the final test and proudly received their license. Now, 7 years later, that pride had curdled into despair. The thought of going through the virtual reality simulations again, the staged arguments with each other, the nightmarish conflicts with virtual in-laws, made him physically ill. Even though he knew it wasn't real, the emotional toll was devastating. To his relief, the reviewer's assessment didn't involve the dreaded simulators. It was just a series of simple, practical tests. The first was a classic trust fall. Chloe climbed onto a small stool, her back to Liam. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, but glanced back over her shoulder just before she was meant to fall. "You have to catch me," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't want to end up with a concussion." Liam almost laughed. Chloe weighed next to nothing. Catching her would be effortless. "Don't worry," he said, trying to sound reassuring. "I'll be right here. I'll catch you." He crouched, his arms ready. He waited and waited. Chloe remained frozen on the stool. "Never mind," she finally said, stepping down. "I can't do it. Your turn." Liam was stung by her lack of faith. He couldn't believe she didn't trust him even with something so simple. "Fine," he said, his voice tight. "I trust you completely." He stepped onto the stool, turned his back, and without a moment's hesitation, let himself fall backward. He expected to feel her arms, a secure cradle. Instead, he felt nothing but air, followed by a sickening crash as his body hit the hardwood floor. If the reviewer hadn't lunged forward to cushion his head, he would have been seriously injured. "What are you doing?" Liam roared, rubbing the back of his throbbing head as pain and fury surged through him. "You were supposed to be there. You were supposed to catch me." Chloe's face was pale with shock. "You yelled at me. I wasn't ready. Why did you just fall like that without warning?" The reviewer sighed and made a note in his logbook. "Let's move on to the next test, shall we?" The second test was a blindfolded retrieval game. In the first round, Liam was blindfolded. He had to navigate from the living room to the bedroom and find a specific lipstick on Chloe's vanity, guided only by her voice. The journey was a disaster. He stumbled over an ottoman, knocked over a vase, and walked straight into a doorframe. When he finally located the lipstick, it was the wrong shade. "It was a straight line from the couch to the bedroom," he said, ripping off the blindfold. "Why did you make me walk in circles?" The 10-meter distance had felt like a marathon. "I'm the one giving directions," she said coolly. "I can direct you however I want. Besides, you didn't even find the right one in the end." Liam gritted his teeth, swallowing his anger. In the second round, it was Chloe's turn to be blindfolded while Liam guided her to the bathroom to retrieve his electric razor. Blind and disoriented, Chloe moved with extreme caution. Liam, his patience already worn thin, grew frustrated and barked at her to hurry up. Startled by his sharp tone, she lost her footing and fell hard on the tiled floor. She pulled off the blindfold, her eyes filling with tears as she looked at the rapidly forming bruise on her knee. "Is there any point in continuing?" she asked, looking up at the reviewer. He shook his head, his expression grim. "Based on these tests, it's clear that you have lost all sense of harmony and communication in your daily interactions. Even the most fundamental element, trust, has completely eroded." Liam rushed to help Chloe up, his eyes wide with panic. "That was just a mistake. We can do it again. We can do better." Chloe shook her head and pushed his hand away. "Stop lying to yourself, Liam. We're not right for each other anymore." The reviewer made his final notes without looking up. "According to Bureau regulations, your marriage license cannot be renewed. It is hereby confiscated." He closed his notebook and walked over to the small table where their license lay. The paper certificate, its red cover faded and worn, seemed to bear the weight of all their years of struggle. The reviewer picked it up, slipped it into his black briefcase, and offered them a sterile, practiced smile. "Thank you for your cooperation. You have 7 business days to report to the Bureau to finalize the division of property and assets." As he turned to leave, Liam chased after him. "Wait, is that it? Is there really no other option?" The reviewer paused and pulled a stack of photographs from his briefcase. "These are all individuals whose licenses have recently expired. Their contact information is on the back. If you see someone you like, you can contact them. Since you've both passed the exam before, getting remarried should be relatively easy for you." Liam stared at him, aghast. The reviewer had completely misunderstood. "No, that's not what I mean," he said desperately. "Since we had to pass an exam to get the license, is it possible to apply for a retest? To try and earn it back?" The reviewer's professional facade softened for a moment. "A retest is possible," he conceded, "but only if both parties agree to it, or if the relationship can be restored to a state that meets the conditions for renewal." He had offered a choice, but Liam knew it was an impossible one. He couldn't force Chloe to agree, and he had no idea how to fix what was broken between them. He admitted to himself that he had neglected her, but deep down, he still loved her more than anything. Chloe was just as conflicted. A part of her still loved the man standing before her, but the life they were living was a constant source of pain. Time had stolen their sweetness, leaving only blame and exhaustion in its place. How could they ever put the pieces of their shattered mirror back together? Time cannot be reversed, the reviewer said, sensing their silent turmoil as he sat back down on the sofa. But memory can be altered. He looked from Liam's desperate face to Chloe's tear-streaked one. What if there was a way to make the painful memories of your marriage disappear, leaving only the sweet, beautiful moments behind? Would you be willing to try that? A flicker of hope ignited in Liam's eyes. It was a lifeline. Chloe, her heart in turmoil, looked at the reviewer. Could we really go back to how we were? The reviewer reached into his briefcase and laid several documents on the coffee table. Many couples face license expiration. For those who have completely given up, memory alteration is not an option. But for those who wish to try again, Liam was so excited he could barely hear what the man was saying. His eyes scanned the documents until they landed on a heading, Memory Extraction Procedure. He snatched up the paper, his hands trembling. He saw Chloe staring at it too, her expression a mixture of fear and fascination. Chloe, he pleaded, what if we try it? What if it could really take us back? Chloe had heard rumors of couples who had saved their marriages through memory modification. But if they changed her memories, would she still be herself? As if reading her mind, the reviewer explained. Memory extraction is the safest form of memory modification. It targets only the period of marital crisis, leaving all your prior memories intact. It won't affect your personality or your future, though there is a small risk of side effects, such as residual memory fragments. Liam grabbed his wife's hand, his voice thick with emotion. Chloe, please. I promise, if we can go back, I'll spend more time with you. I'll never let you be lonely again. Just give me one more chance. Please. Faced with her husband's desperate plea, Chloe's resolve finally broke. After a long, silent moment, she nodded. All right, she whispered. I'll do it. But if it doesn't work, you can never mention renewing our license again. Liam knew this was his last chance. I promise, he said, his voice filled with renewed hope. I will cherish this. A few days later, Liam and Chloe lay on parallel beds inside the memory extraction machine. They held hands tightly, their eyes reflecting a shared mixture of nostalgia for the love they once had and terror of the unknown. As the machine whirred to life, a soft, warm light enveloped them, and their consciousness drifted back through time. They were back in the park where they first met, on a perfect spring day. The cherry blossoms were falling like snow. Liam was in a light blue shirt, Chloe in a white sundress. Their eyes met across the sea of pink and white, and in that instant, the world stood still. Reliving it, they both felt the ghost of that first, breathtaking spark. Then, their first date in a cozy little coffee shop. They talked for hours, sharing dreams and secrets under the soft glow of the lamps, their hearts racing every time their eyes met. Finally, the proposal. Liam had set up a ridiculously romantic scene on the beach, with candles and flowers everywhere. When Chloe arrived and saw him on one knee, she had burst into tears and said, yes, without a moment's hesitation. The sound of the waves seemed to applaud their love. But then, as the procedure continued, the idyllic memories began to fray at the edges. The dull, grating reality of their married life surfaced. Chloe's voice, sharp with resentment, complaining about his late nights and the smell of alcohol on his breath. Liam's own frustration boiling over, kicking the dining table and sending plates crashing to the floor. Chloe, sitting on the cold tiles, crying silently as he passed out on the couch. The arguments, the silent treatments, the slow, agonizing drift into separate beds, then separate rooms. All of it. Then, like fog burning off in the morning sun, the painful fragments began to dissolve. When they woke up, it was as if no time had passed at all. Though they had been married for 7 years, they felt like they were in the first blush of a passionate romance. The resentment, the bitterness, the nightmares, all gone. The next morning, Liam woke to see the gentle dawn light filtering into their bedroom. He looked at Chloe's peaceful face beside him and felt an overwhelming wave of love. When she opened her eyes, he was there, smiling. Their life became a perfect romance. Liam, though still busy, never forgot to bring home flowers. Chloe started making his favorite breakfasts on the weekends. They took long walks in the park, holding hands and talking for hours. When disagreements arose, they handled them with patience and understanding. Their love had been reborn. But memory is a treacherous thing. Like a predator hiding in the shadows, the remnants of what they had erased began to stir in their subconscious. Less than a year after the surgery, Liam's ambition flared up again. He and his business partner embarked on an aggressive market expansion. The long hours and business trips returned. Without Liam by her side, Chloe's world began to shrink. The loneliness she thought she had escaped came creeping back. Friends could only do so much to fill the echoing silence of the empty house. When she suggested getting a job, Liam dismissed the idea, insisting he could provide for her. The argument that followed was their first major fight since the procedure, and it ended in a stony, unresolved silence. Desperate to fill the void, Chloe decided she wanted a child. A baby would bring life and warmth back into their home. But when she went to the hospital for a preconception checkup, the doctor delivered a devastating blow. She was infertile. Even more shocking was what the doctor told her next. According to their records, she had already been diagnosed with the same condition 4 years ago. The news was a thunderbolt, shattering her world. They had planned to have a child in their second year of marriage, but Liam had just started his company and asked her to wait. She couldn't understand. She had always been healthy. She had only ever been with one man in her life, Liam. When she pressed the hospital for more details, they cited patient confidentiality and refused to elaborate. Panicked, she called Liam. He was just as baffled. He had no memory of her ever going to the hospital for such tests 4 years ago. Honey, don't worry, he said, trying to calm her. They must have mixed up your file with someone else's. I'm on my way. When he arrived, she collapsed into his arms, sobbing. Liam, I can't have children. After consoling her, Liam stormed into the office of the hospital's vice dean, a kind-looking man in his 60s with a full head of white hair. Please, calm down, the old doctor said gently. Tell me what happened. Liam angrily recounted the story. The dean listened patiently, then asked for a surprising document, their marriage license. What? Liam exploded. What does our marriage license have to do with anything? I've never heard of a hospital needing that for a medical exam. The dean adjusted his glasses. I suspect you may have forgotten some things, he said, tapping his temple. The license will confirm it. Confused, Liam was about to argue further when Chloe produced the license from her purse. I brought it just in case, she murmured. The dean took the license and placed it on a small machine on his desk that looked like a credit card reader. He pressed a green button, and after a few beeps, a login screen for the personal marriage management system appeared on his computer. Just as I thought, he said, looking at them over his glasses. This license was reissued. Your original one must have expired. Liam refused to believe him. Their love was strong. How could they have let their license expire? In today's society, the divorce rate is very high, the dean explained. Many couples, in an attempt to save a failing marriage, undergo the memory extraction procedure at the bureau. He paused, but Liam and Chloe just stared at him blankly. It seems you both had the procedure done, erasing the conflict from your marriage. While the surgery can offer a temporary escape, it doesn't solve the underlying problems. And sometimes, memory residue can trigger a vicious cycle. Liam vaguely remembered a colleague mentioning memory extraction once. He had scoffed at the idea then. Now, hearing the dean's calm, certain words, a cold dread washed over him. If they had resorted to such a drastic measure, their marriage must have been on the brink of total collapse. If you wish to restore your memories, the dean continued, you can log into your personal marriage portal and schedule an appointment with the bureau. They can arrange for a reversal. He had given them a choice, but for Liam, it was an impossible one. Recovering a lost period of his life was unsettling, but for someone as sensitive as Chloe, it could be catastrophic. He decided it was better to let it go. But Chloe disagreed. She had to know why she couldn't have a child. If we chose to erase our memories, it must have been because we were in unbearable pain, Liam argued, gripping her hand. If we restore them, our marriage could end for good. Are we happy now, Liam? She asked, her eyes filled with a new, hard-won clarity as she pulled her hand away. I don't want to spend my days waiting in an empty house. I want a child of my own, and reality has just slapped me in the face. I am done living in a fog. I want the truth. Seeing the unshakable resolve in her eyes, Liam knew it was useless to argue. Before leaving the hospital, they logged into the portal and scheduled the appointment. 3 days later, they were sitting in the sterile waiting room of the Marriage Management Bureau. As long as both parties consent, the memory extraction can be reversed, the young woman behind the counter said in a monotone voice, typing on her keyboard without looking at them. However, you must assume full responsibility for any and all consequences. We can handle whatever happens, Liam said, the lie tasting like ash in his mouth. The woman pushed a form through the slot. Sign the waiver. Someone will be with you shortly. They signed. A moment later, a technician in a white coat appeared and led them down a long corridor to the memory restoration room. As the door swung open, Chloe flinched, her hand instinctively grabbing Liam's arm. It's okay, he whispered, though his own heart was pounding. No matter what, we'll face it together. It felt like a hollow promise. They lay down on the beds, just as they had before. The machine hummed to life, and a sweet-smelling gas filled the room. They awoke with a jolt, as if from a powerful electric shock. They weren't at the bureau anymore. They were in their own bed. Liam's head was splitting, and as he sat up, the missing years came flooding back in a tidal wave of bitterness and regret. He looked over at Chloe. She was curled into a ball, her head in her hands, her whole body shaking. Chloe? What's wrong? He gently pulled her hands away from her face and saw that she was weeping uncontrollably. The baby, she choked out. We had a baby. But he never. He was gone before he was born. Liam's blood ran cold. What was she talking about? Had the restoration surgery gone wrong? Calm down, he said, trying to keep the panic out of his own voice. We never had a child. You've never been pregnant. No, she cried, shaking her head violently. I remember it. I remember it all so clearly. You were there with me, at the ultrasound. Liam's mind was reeling. They had both undergone the same procedure, so why were their restored memories completely different? He clearly remembered the truth. Their license had expired because Chloe wanted a divorce. He remembered his guilt over his neglect, the hope the first surgery had given them, and his deep regret when their old problems resurfaced. He did not, under any circumstances, remember a pregnancy. His wife must be hallucinating. The surgery must have damaged her memory. He stumbled out of bed and into the bathroom, frantically dialing the bureau's emergency line. After being transferred multiple times, he was finally connected with a Dr. Evelyn Reed, a professor specializing in memory restoration. The scope of memory restoration can vary from person to person, she explained calmly. The time frames are not always identical. This is all stated clearly in the waiver you signed. Liam cursed his own carelessness. My wife has always wanted a child, he said, his voice trembling. Is it possible the surgery caused some kind of memory confusion? That she's mistaking a fantasy for reality? It's possible, but highly unlikely, Dr. Reed replied. From your description, your wife's memory of the event is extremely detailed and emotionally charged. This is more characteristic of memory residue. Liam felt a fresh wave of panic. If Chloe's memory was real, if the baby was real, then that meant his own memory was the one with the gaping hole. But that was impossible. He had never had any other memory procedures. How could he have lost such a significant memory? Unless a horrifying, sickening thought flashed through his mind. Unless the child she remembered wasn't his. He immediately slapped himself, hard. How could you even think that? He and Chloe had been together since college. They had been each other's first and only love. Their story wasn't some cheap soap opera. But if the child was his, and it had existed, then the problem was with him. He told Dr. Reed everything, hoping she could make sense of the impossible contradiction. As of now, all memory modification procedures require the consent of both spouses, she said after a long pause. But memory extraction is not the only type of surgery available. What do you mean? Liam asked, his throat tight. If my hypothesis is correct, she continued slowly, it's possible you and your wife have undergone more than one type of procedure. That could account for the severe discrepancy in your restored memories. Liam was stunned. He asked her to check their records. A few moments later, she came back. The only procedure on file at the local bureau was their memory extraction from a year ago. Wait, Liam said, seizing on a detail. You said there's no record at the local bureau. What about somewhere else? Dr. Reed explained that while marriage licenses were part of a national network, the records of memory modification procedures were highly confidential and strictly localized. They were never shared between bureaus. The only way to access them was for both parties to consent to a memory restoration. Has this ever happened before? Liam asked, his voice barely a whisper. Have other people recovered deleted memories that don't match up? He desperately needed an answer, terrified of what that answer might be.